What's going on, Rovers? It's Mr. Shalat back with another video. Today we're continuing to hit up OnShape. All right, we're done with our puzzle cube project. We're now moving on. We want to talk about some ISO shapes. So I'm going to share my screen out with you, the document that we're going to be working with. All right, let's take a look at it here. You guys are going to have to design, try and recreate these 12 shapes. Okay, these 12 shapes are pretty simple. There are no rounded edges, there's no circles. Okay, basic stuff, but I want you to get used to using OnShape more. All right, you should be able to knock these out pretty quick. These are simple shapes. All right, you shouldn't struggle with any of these. Some are a little more difficult than others. All right, but what I want to show you today is two different methods. Okay, when we created our puzzle cube, we created our shape using the additive method. Okay, and what I mean by that is we would draw a sketch and we would keep adding to it. All right, we kept adding all the different intricacies of each of our puzzle cube pieces. All right, now we're going to change things up a little bit, and I'm going to show you. I'll do the first one for you. All right, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how to model that first part there, this piece that we've seen several times in drawings since we started the class. All right, we're going to take that drawing and I'm going to show you two different methods. One is going to be the additive method, much like we just did with our puzzle cube. And I'm going to introduce something new to you. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we got to get OnShape going here. I'm going to be using OnShape on the computer. Okay. You don't necessarily have to do that. Okay. Obviously, you can use your iPad. We all know that the software is exactly the same. Just for screen sharing purposes, I'm going to be using the computer. All right. So when you first open it up, you're going to have to create a new document. So I'm going to click on create, start a new document. We're going to call this ISO shapes because the piece of paper that I'm holding up here, okay, it has 12 ISO shapes. So we're going to call that ISO shapes. And what will happen is we'll end up having all 12 shapes all in this one document. Okay, we'll have tabs down at the bottom, just like we did with our puzzle cube, only now we're going to be working on the shapes that are on this particular sheet. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit OK. That'll bring me up to my blank canvas. All right, remember you have your three axes. When you're working with those, you can keep them, you can turn them off as you're working. It's personal preference. Okay, if at any time you don't want to see them anymore, okay, on the computer, you come over here on the left, and also on the iPad app, it's located over there on the left. You just turn those eyeballs off. Okay, and that'll turn all those off for us. All right, so for now I'm going to turn them all off except our front view till we get going. All right, so I'm going to be drawing on the front view here in just a second. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool at the top, my sketch tool. I'm going to select that surface. You want to rotate and look directly at it. So I'm going to click on front. Okay, we're looking right at the shape. And I'm going to go ahead and start sketching this out. All right, I'm going to grab my line tool at the top. All right, and I'm going to roughly start sketching out how I think the shape looks. I'm going to start with the back of this thing, that crown looking piece. Okay, kind of looks like a castle. All right, so I'm roughly going to draw this how I think it looks. Dimensions are irrelevant at this point. Okay, and it's done. I know that line's crooked, but it's going to straighten out after we start putting some dimensions on there. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so I'm going to choose my dimensioning tool, and the overall height of this thing, when you count on the sheet, it's 5 blocks tall. Okay, so each of those blocks are 1/4 of an inch. So 5 times 1/4, if you're not sure what that is, OnShape is very smart and will do the calculation for you. So what I want to show, all right, is instead of me typing in the answer, which is going to be 1.25, all right, if I don't know that answer, okay, I can type in 5 star 0.25 and hit enter, okay, and then that makes that adjustment for us, okay? And I know over here, this line as well, the height on that one is also going to be 5 times 0.25. Now, if you know what the answer is, and you can see that the shape is already starting to straighten out based off of those dimensions that we put there, if you know what the answer is, you could just type it in, all right? But sometimes you just don't know, all right? So across the top here, we'll dimension these. All right, this one's going to be 0.25, all right? This one here is going to be 0.25 because it's one block, all right? In between the difference there, okay, we have 3 blocks. So if you're looking at the document, you can see that there's 3 there. So I'm going to type 3 times 0.25, which ends up being 0.75. All right. And if I go to dimension this bottom line, you can see that it's telling me it's 1.25. All right. And we can check out our work. When I hit enter, you'll notice that that one is grayed out. Okay. So look at all my dimensions right now. These are all numbers that I typed in. Okay. I typed all these in. They're black. But the one down here at the bottom is now grayed out. That is what we call a driven dimension. A driven dimension is a dimension that has been calculated by the program. Okay. So based off of the information that I typed up here, 0.25, 0.75, 0.25, it added those numbers up and it already knew what the length of this line is. I can't come down here and say, oh, that's a 5-inch line, because then the numbers don't match and you'll get an error on the screen. Okay. So this down here being grayed out, that is a driven dimension. That's not something I entered. It's something the program knew based off of the other numbers that you typed in. So if you ever get a driven dimension that is wrong, that means you dimensioned it wrong somewhere else. Okay, so you have to double check your work. So at this point, we're done with this particular sketch. I can go ahead and hit the green check mark in this case. All right. We'll look at this from the corner. So we're looking at it, and now we're going to go ahead and extrude it. So I'll come up to the top and I'll choose my extrude tool. Okay, select it. It starts coming out. How far does it come out? Well, the distance is 2 blocks. Okay, so instead of our depth being 1 inch, which is the default here in the program, we're going to go ahead and type in 0.5, okay, because it's 2 blocks. And there we go. All right, looking good. So the back of this shape's already done. We're going to continue to add to this shape. I can turn off my front view. Okay, I don't need to see that anymore. All right, and I'm going to add more to this shape. So what I want to do is I'm going to look at this thing from the bottom, and I'm going to start a sketch here on the bottom. Okay, which allows me to select that surface. All right. And now we can start adding to the shape. Okay. So as I'm designing this, zoom out a little bit so we can see. All right. So with this, I'll get my line tool. I know I have to snap to this corner. So as I come in, you want to make sure that that corner is highlighted. Okay. With your finger, make sure you're doing the same thing on the iPad app. You got to make sure it's getting right to the corner. That's important. All right. And this thing comes straight up and down, and it comes over, and it comes down. There it goes, comes back up, comes over, back down to our original point, and then we have to finish the shape off by coming back to our original first point. We have to finish the shape. Okay, so I click on my original first point. Now we're going to throw some dimensions on this. All right, so as I go to dimension it, we pull this up. Looking at it, the width of this up here is actually 1.5. It's a block and a half. So 1.5 times 0.25, okay, that quarter of an inch block, and hit enter, it's going to give me the number, which is 0.375, okay? So now that I know that number, I could actually just type in 0.375, okay? In the back, this distance right here, okay, ends up being it's 2 blocks wide. Okay, so 2 blocks wide is 0.5. That's why they gave us the driven dimension. We're going to dimension this length here. Okay, the length that we have ends up being 6. Okay, so it would be 6 times 0.25 and hit enter. Same thing over here. Okay, 1.5. There we go. Let's double check all of our numbers. All right, does it go back 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, it does. It comes over a block and a half. In the back, there's 2 blocks. We're good to go on this thing. Okay, we're good to go. So I'll hit the green check mark. We're going to rotate our cube. We want to get back to our normal view. We want to add this material here. Okay, so I'm going to choose extrude. I'll select that shape. Notice what's happening. It's going down. We need it to go the opposite direction. Okay, so to change that up over here where the arrow is pointing, if you click on that button, it now goes up. The distance that it comes up is 2 blocks high. So instead of that 1 inch, which is the default, I need to type in the height, which would be 0.5, something just like that. Green check mark, and we're good to go. Okay, the shape is finished. It's done. All right. I might need to check my dimensions because something seems wrong. So let's go back. Let's look at our sketch. Did I mess up? Oh, I never dimensioned these. Those of you watching probably picked up on that. Mr. Shalat, you didn't put a measurement in there. That ends up being 4 blocks, which is 1 inch. Okay, and then this one over here should give me a driven dimension of 1 inch, which it did. We hit the checkbox. We go back to our normal view. And now the shape looks right. See what happens when you forget one key dimension? All right, so this is done, finished. We're good, okay? We're gonna make sure that we name this, okay? So down here at the bottom, I'm gonna rename it. We'll call it part 1. Okay, part 1. Okay, it's got a name down here at the bottom now. We're good to go. All right, next, let's redraw the same part, but we're going to draw it a different way this time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start a new document. All right, again, I can turn off some of these eyeballs. I'm going to draw on my front view. Okay, when I go to draw my front view, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share my screen. And I want to show you this document. Okay. So as we're looking at this, we need to draw our front view. Okay. The front view of our document. Okay. These are already oriented in the proper position. This is my front view over here on the left. This would be my right side view. Okay, so this is my front, this is my right side view, and obviously the top is the top. So I'll stop sharing my screen. We'll go back into our drawing. Now, this is what we call the subtractive method, all right? And much like we did our drawings in the notebook, let me blow this up a little bit so you can see me better. Okay. Much like we did the drawings in our book, all right? Slide that, there we go. All right. When we did the drawings in our book, we always drew a box, okay? And then we fit everything inside the box. Well, that's what we're going to do now. It's called the subtractive method, all right? So we're going to first start a sketch on our front view. So we're looking directly at it. I'm going to start with a large box, okay? So I'm going to draw the box that I need. We're going to dimension the box, okay? Overall height of the shape is 5 blocks. Okay, so 5 times 0.25. Okay, the overall width of the shape is 8 blocks. So 8 times 0.25. All right. And there we go. Finish the sketch by hitting the check mark. We look back, all right, and now we're ready to extrude it. So I'm going to choose extrude. I will select the box. I'm going to have that go back in the opposite direction. The overall depth of our shape is 5 blocks. So it is not a depth of 1 inch. It ends up being 5 times 0.25. And by now, you probably know what these numbers are, but I like typing in the equation just so you can see it do the math. Okay, ends up being 1.25. All right. Hit the green check mark. We can turn off that front view. We can turn off the eyeball. All right. And there's our shape. Everything's got to fit within inside of this box. So we are so used to drawing a box and making everything fit. We're actually going to do that now. Okay. We'll do that now. We're going to take what we have and start subtracting things. Okay. We start with the whole box. We start getting rid of things. All right. So what is the process with that? All right. Well, if I go to start a sketch here on the top, okay, and we look at our top view, all right, so we can come in. If I start a box up here in the corner and I drag over in this direction, right, we go ahead and throw some dimensions on this, okay? So from one side to the other should be 1.25, which it is. That's a driven dimension, okay? Going back to where that castle piece starts, total of 6 blocks. So it ends up being 1.5. Okay. Just like that. We finish the sketch. Okay. We look at the shape. All right. So far, so good. Again, looking at our view cube, we have our front, right, and top in the right orientation that we need. We're going to go ahead and extrude this. I'll select the box. The box needs to go downward. We are now cutting away material. Okay. So in this box here, instead of adding material, I'm going to select remove material. Okay. So add and remove are right in the same box. We're going to remove material. Okay. How far is that drop down? Well, it's 3 blocks. So instead of coming down 1 inch, I'm going to type in 3 times 0.25, hit enter, gives me that 0.75 that I need. Check the box. Okay. Now the shape is starting to form. Okay. So again, we could do another sketch. I'll select the top of this. Okay. We'll look at the top of this. I'll go ahead and get my rectangle tool. Okay. Draw the box that I need. We want to make sure we dimension it now. All right. So we'll go from this corner to that corner. Oh, I'm still on the box tool. Made a mistake. Got to make sure you're on dimensioning. Okay. So we'll dimension. Okay. The width of that is 1.5 blocks. So 1.5 times 0.25 is 0.375. We'll dimension the same on the other side from here to here. 0.375. Hit enter. Okay. The depth going back. We're not going to forget it this time. It's going to be 1 inch. Okay. And this should give me a driven dimension of 1/2, which it did. Okay. So we're done. We're now ready to extrude. I'll select the shape. We're going to go in the opposite direction. It's going to be a remove. Okay. Now, what you're going to do, all right, is instead of typing in a dimension, we know that this comes down a total of 2 blocks. So you could type 0.5 and that would work. All right. However, instead of it going a direction, you're going to come in here and choose through all. And what that will do, it will cut all the way down through any material that is below it. Cuts right through the shape. You don't even have to type a number. So in the subtractive method, when you're just trying to blow something out, that's what you do. You choose through all. It's going to go all the way through. You don't have to do any math. Okay. So through all, shape's looking good. All right. Shape's looking good. And now we're going to look at the top. So we'll do a sketch. We'll actually do it on this surface. Why not? We'll look at it from the front. We're going to draw a rectangle. Again, you want to make sure that rectangle snaps to the top. Okay. We'll throw some dimensions on this. We go from side to side. It's one block, 0.25. Okay. I don't like how that did that. Jumped a little bit too much. Let's back it up. Let's back it up. All right. So we will dimension the other side first because it's shorter. 0.25. There we go. And now we can double click on that dimension, type in the 0.25. We drew our box a little bit too big. No big deal. Just had to move our dimensions around. All right. The drop coming down. That's a distance of one block too. So it's going to be 0.25. Just like that. Okay. Finish the sketch. Look at our drawing. We do an extrude. We select the box. We're going to go the opposite way. And we're going to go through all. We're going to remove through all. Okay. Cuts right through the shape. And there we go. Okay. We would rename this. Okay. Part 2. Okay. Part 2. We're going to do that all the way across. All right. So there we drew the same exact shape, 2 different ways. Let me stop sharing the screen here. All right. When you're creating these shapes, okay, there's way more than one way to draw the shape. Okay. When you're looking at those 12 shapes, which I'll share out the screen again. Okay. When you're looking at all these shapes here, there's lots of different ways to draw. Okay. You can use the additive method. You can use the subtractive method. You can use a combination of the two. Okay. When I created this shape, okay, I could have used a combination. I didn't have to do it the way I did it. There's plenty of more ways than the 2 ways I just did to draw that same shape. I could probably draw it 2 or 3 more ways using different methods. Okay. I could have started over here, extrude it. There's so many ways. There's so many ways. So don't feel that, oh, I don't get it. My way doesn't work. That's not true. Okay. There's a lot of different tools in the toolbox. How you use them is completely up to you. We're all trying to get to the same goal. Okay. So in the end, you want to do as little steps as possible. Okay. You don't want to have a million different steps and a million different extrudes in order to get to that final shape. Okay. But doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay. But if you're trying to be someone that is really, really good at modeling, the less steps you can accomplish the shape in, the better you are. Okay. So when we look at the next one, okay, do I start with a whole box? Do I draw it piece by piece? There's no right or wrong answer. Okay. So you're going to knock these 12 out. Honestly, they're not hard shapes. I just want you to get used to using the program. Okay. Because right now, when we did the puzzle cube, we crawled. Okay. We went pretty slow. Now we're going to start to walk. Okay. Eventually we'll jog, we'll run, we'll sprint. All right. All that stuff. We're not there yet. Okay. There's a lot of features. You can see the amount of tools that are in this program. All right. We're not there yet, but this is getting us to where we need to get to. All right. And we are just starting the second marking period. So you guys are going to come up with a lot of creative stuff, not just stuff that I give you, stuff that you come up with your head. you're going to do the sketches and you're going to end up creating things. Right now, we're learning the program. I need you to get familiar with the tools. So whether you're using the iPad app, whether you're using OnShape on the computer, it's the same experience. Okay. It's the same experience. Okay. So take your time, have fun with it. You want to get all 12 of these done. And then ultimately, you want to put all 12 on a drawing sheet. We're trying to recreate the sheet that I gave you, okay, inside of OnShape. You're going to have all 12 shapes all on one sheet, okay? Again, the shapes aren't hard, all right? I just want you to get used to being able to count the drawing, understand the drawing, get the drawing into the 3D space and be able to create these parts. Okay. If you have questions, please reach out to me via email. All right. Or talk to me in class. Hope you all have a great day. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.